The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be carrying on part 2 of the 2021 session, and this is the year in review. So today I want to get into 2 categories. Number 1 is going to be spiritual health, and number 2 is going to be financial health. First, let's just say spiritual health was probably the number 1 area, and building a spiritual discipline was the number 1 area that I probably worked on the most inside of 2021. And really the biggest lesson, the biggest takeaway from this is just how much having a spiritual discipline, having spiritual habits impact every other area of life. I used to think working out, physical fitness, maybe had the biggest impact on every other area of life. But I really think having spiritual habits like prayer, reading the Bible, journaling, I think those 3 combination can have as big, if not bigger of an impact than physical fitness on all areas of life. And I like to think of these as what I call cascade habits. It cascades and affects so many other areas when I, pray, when I read the Bible, and when I journal. And it's almost like taking, physical fitness is going to impact your life kind of in an external way, and almost in all these other ways, like your mindset. It's going to affect how you show up in your business, how you show up in relationships. Spiritual fitness and exercising that on a day-to-day basis is really going to impact every area of your life, not just on an external level, but on an internal level. And, some of the habits that I really worked on this year was, going to church consistently. I would say, this year we went to church, there's 52 weeks in a year. But I will say that I think we probably went about 48 weeks this year. And then we also served at church, and just having a servant mentality, I think is huge. And being able to do that in our church was really big. And then prayer with myself, having prayer time with myself daily. And then obviously, last episode, if you heard, just having prayer time with my wife every single day. And then also praying, for our kids and praying over our kids, both individually and together. And then at times with them also had a huge impact. And then one thing that I didn't really realize we did, but we did end up doing, and that was tithing more money than I've ever tithed in my life. And I think what was cool is, when I look back, I'm like, wow, I really tithed that much. And I was thinking about it. I was like, man, I used to make that much money. And I remember, when I would make that money, thinking of, man, I can't afford to tithe, or I can't afford to give back that much. But just to be able to look back and know that I tithed as much as I used to make. Well, I mean, that was probably 25 years ago, but still thinking of it that way, that it's really cool to think about that you can tithe and not really think about, losing the money, but think about how it actually multiplies. And so I think the number one thing that I take away, from this is just continuing to leverage the habit of prayer, the habit of, reading the Bible, and the habit of journal. And then also, making sure that I'm keeping up with this habit of tithing on a week to week basis. And then also thinking about, man, I want to be able to give double what I did this year. And I want to be able to give double what I did next year and, do over 6 figures in tithing, because that is something that really is huge for me and huge for my wife. And we really want to impact and continue to grow the kingdom. And we also want to, sow seeds in the future also. And so those really are the habits that I really worked on and focused on inside of our spiritual life and my spiritual life. Just the impact and the cascade effect that those have on so many other areas. Now, let's talk about business. And business is, I think, one of the biggest things, and I know this, but really sitting down and being like, man, what did I really take away from, 2021? And it was, you have to constantly change and improve what you're doing. And so you have to always be leveling up your offer. Now, I don't think you have to constantly change as far as your delivery method, but I think on a certain level, you have to constantly change your offer and continue to make it better, continue to add more value, really listen to what your clients want and what they're asking for, and being willing to change to be able to deliver that to them. Because I think if we're not willing to change, if we're not willing to listen to our clients, we're going to end up getting married to our program and to what we help them with. And we're going to miss out on what's actually going to help them. And I think at the end of the day, we got to be willing to listen to clients, and we got to be willing to change and level up our offer and continue to give them more value, continue to give them more of what they need. Another thing that I will say, which is not relying on one marketing resource. Now, some of you guys may be sitting there thinking, well, you talk a lot about organic marketing, but I can really do organic marketing on Facebook. I can do it on Instagram. I can do it on LinkedIn. Those are 3 separate platforms. But say that I was a business owner and I was relying on referrals, and that's my primary method of getting new clients in, then that's relying on one marketing method. And for a lot of the people we might come in contact with who come into our program, they're initially just relying on referrals as their primary marketing method. And one of the things that happened to me is obviously, I've had my Facebook account shut down completely. And that was, probably about 85-90% of our business. And at that time, it's taken about 2 months to kind of get that built back up from where it was. But it was really, eye-opening to think, man, this one marketing method that I was using, and yes, I was using Instagram and using LinkedIn, but I can say it wasn't quite as built up. This same thing that had made me successful, the year before, also made me really successful this year. But the last couple of months of the year, it really strapped us for getting new clients. And so, it made me think, man, you can't rely on one marketing source. I believe that, you need to focus on one, but you also need to expand it, because the year before I could say I relied on this solely as my primary marketing source and just how much it helped. But then to go back and really look at, hey, this actually really affected me in this way is even, crazy to think that one year it really helped me. And then the next year, although it did help me for about 10 months out of the year, the last 2 months, it really kind of came to hurt me. So the other thing is, these are all things that I feel like I've learned, but for you as a business owner, and if you're listening to this, is really to double down on you as a business owner. So understanding you are your number one asset, your business is your number one investment, is to always have a coach at all times. And I think for probably about a 2-month period, there was a time where I didn't, or at least the coach I did have kind of burnt his program down to the ground. And that's a whole nother episode in itself. But not having a coach for a couple months really impacted blind spots and not seeing some of the things and maybe not making as many moves as I could have. A big lesson is to double down on you as a business owner, to have at least one coach who's obviously has a hand in your business and knows kind of the heartbeat and what's going on, can give you direction and can see things happening that maybe you don't. And I think the biggest thing that going into 2022 is really leveraging a specific style of coach that is really going to help me take my business and lifestyle to the next level. And maybe I only work on one that is specific to business. The other one is specific to lifestyle. But that's really what my big leverage is in 2022, and making sure that I have that, starting that out prior to starting 2022. So those are, kind of the big lessons for the year, what I'm going to be leveraging going into 2022, the habits that I'm going to continue to do, and then the habits I'm going to continue to create. I'm going to be talking about those coming up on next episode. And pretty much the whole month of January, we're going to be talking about habits. I've interviewed some amazing people on those, and I'm super excited to just walk into the new year with new habits, new goals, and new things that we're going to be working on. So guys, have a happy new year, and we'll see you next year.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse